of the month of June. Today is Sunday, June 2nd, 2024. Coming up, a new champ at the box office, but for a movie that opened last weekend. We'll talk about that. Plus, big weekend entertainment. Pat Sajak says goodbye to Wheel of Fortune. Robot Dreams already making an impact in just a handful of theaters. Some other new movies this weekend didn't do so well. Bad Boys comes out Friday. It's the Will Smith factor. What is going to happen? Is it going to get to that $62.5 million open that the last Bad Boys did back 4 years ago? We'll talk about all of that and more here on LCJ Live. I'm pulling up YouTube right now. As always, send in your questions and your comments. I saw a movie last night, too. A film called Tuesday. And that's quite a movie. I'll talk a little bit about that. It opens in 2 weeks from May 24, opposite Inside Out 2. That'd be an interesting doubleheader. Send in your questions and your comments. What do you think about the Garfield movie being the new #1 movie in America? Furiosa dropped to 3rd because families need entertainment. They need to go to the movies because they still want to go to the movies. And Garfield and If top the box office this weekend. Garfield #1. $14 million. It's up to 51.6. I don't think it'll get to 100 million. I think If has a shot at 100 million. We will see. But Garfield, the folks at Sony are thrilled. They couldn't get that #1 last weekend. Even in the 4-day, Furiosa is still #1, even with the disappointing figures. But now Garfield on top as the #1 movie in America. And #2 is If with 10.8 million. It's up to 80.4 million for Paramount. Like I said, it'll make a run at 100 million domestically for John Krasinski. Yes, it's lower significantly than the 2 Quiet Place movies, but not bad, all things considered. And then in 3rd, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga with 10.75 million. Warner went 2nd out of the 2. Paramount went 1st with the 10.8 for If this morning. And then Warner Brothers said, you know what? We're not even going to try to be #2 right now. We are going to forcefully put ourselves in #3 with 10.75 million. That is very interesting. Furiosa just $300,000 shy of $50 million domestically. That, the Mad Max Fury Road movie from 9 years ago opened to 45. So we're at 49.7 after 10 days for the new one. That is not great for Warner Brothers. In 4th, Planet of the Apes. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is still making money. Another 8.8 million. It is at $140 million. It is closing in on what the last movie did, War for the Planet of the Apes, which I think did 146.9. Yes, it did. Back in 2017, and we are at 140, I think, almost 140 for this new Planet of the Apes, so it's going to pass the 2017 film. The other 2 made significantly more, including Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which in 2011 made 176. I don't think this is going to get to 176, but man, I don't think Disney and 20th Century honestly expected this would beat the last one and get to 150 million domestically, which it will. So that is a hit. It is the big summer movie so far, without question. Fall Guy, which is in 5th this weekend, is at 4.2 million. It is at $80 million as well as If. They're both at 80 million domestically, but I think Universal wanted more out of the Fall Guy. It will try to get to 90 million domestically. I don't see it getting to 100. But when you look at the summer, Fall Guy underperformed. Apes exceeded expectations. If is doing okay. And then you got Garfield and Furiosa doing so-so numbers. The new movies this weekend, none really did tremendous business. And then you've got Strangers Chapter 1, which is officially Lionsgate's highest grossing movie of the year so far. It added 3.6 million this weekend. It's at 28.4. It passes Imaginary to become the biggest movie of the year for Lionsgate. And you look at the year and you go, wow, horror. Horror is still doing really well. Now with this beating Imaginary, and then this weekend coming up, you got The Watchers with Dakota Fanning from Warner Brothers, is Shauna Night Shyamalan's new film, which is counter-programming to Bad Boys Ride or Die, and could do pretty well. Could this have a $20 million open, The Watchers? We will see. It's Warner Brothers behind it, and they need a hit off of Furiosa underperforming. So the Watchers could do pretty well because horror is hot in 2024. Right behind The Strangers with 3.5 million this weekend was Haikyuu, The Dumpster Battle, new anime film. A lot of people went to see this out of the gate. It did 800,000 on Thursday. Did another million and change on Friday. The 3-day total, 3.5-day total, $3.5 million. All things considered, not bad. People still love anime, and the anime fans went to see this. And not as big as Spy X Family Code White, one of the most entertaining movies of the year so far, which opened to 4.9 million and totaled 8.1. I don't think this will get to 8.1, and it didn't do the 4.9, but still 3.5, not bad. Your biggest new movie this weekend. So that came in 7th. In 8th this weekend, In a Violent Nature, the new horror movie from IFC, opened to $2.1 million. Not bad. Close to what Late Night with the Devil opened to earlier this year for IFC Films. Joey, shout out to anime. There you go. Yes, shout out to anime. Still bringing in some box office dollars. Huge anime fan base in North America. Number 9 this weekend, Ezra, which I don't think is a great film. I've seen worse, but it should have focused on Ezra, the main character, the kid. Instead, it focuses on the father, Bobby Cannavale. Not a great performance from him. A lot of subplots that just don't work. Messy, not funny, not compelling. You kind of go, oh my gosh, really? Are we going there with this? Messy movie, only 1.2 million for Ezra this weekend. But it did better than another movie, which I'll tell you about in a second. In 10th this weekend, we believe, is Sight, which is the good drama with Terry Chen and Greg Kinnear, based on an inspiring true story. Added 1.1 million. It's at 5.9 for Angel Studios. Just below that, supposedly, the money's still coming in, but Roadside Attractions wanted Summer Camp to do better than this. Only 1.06 million for Summer Camp this weekend. It's in 11th right now. It could end up in the top 10 when the actual results are released tomorrow. This is the, at times, painfully, embarrassingly unfunny Diane Keaton, Kathy Bates, Alfred Woodard, Eugene Levy comedy, where they go back to summer camp. And look, Diane Keaton had a hit with Book Club back in 2018. But really, when it comes to these ensemble comedies with big names in them, including her, they just have not done the same as the first Book Club. Jane Fonda was able to make it work with 80 for Brady, which made 39 million for Paramount last year. But these other Diane Keaton ensemble comedies, including this, few others that were indies, Palms, Love, Weddings, and Other Disasters, and the sequel to Book Club, which only made 17.5 million last year, a big disappointment. Just haven't been able to capture the same audience attention. And Summer Camp, clearly, just $1 million for a pretty bad film. There's one good scene in it between Kathy Bates and Josh Peck, and that's really all I can recommend out of the movie. It's just, as I was watching it going, really? Really? Hopefully yes, as I wrote the other day, thank you, Joey, the DKECCU can rebound with another worthy entry. The Diane Keaton Ensemble Comedy Cinematic Universe, which began with Book Club, and it spawned off into all these other movies. I want to mention Young Woman in the Sea, which is an excellent film I saw on Monday. It made about $500,000 this weekend. That's what they're saying. They're saying it was in 300 theaters. Disney didn't want to report the official money, the official theater count. I think the per screen average is going to be higher than half the movies in this top 10. So I think Disney should release the money. But they want this more as an awards play, but it's the end of May, beginning of June. It's a very good movie. It deserves that. Joaquin Roning, who co-directed the last Pirates of the Caribbean movie, which I think should be the final one. It was a good send-off, satisfying. He also directed the Maleficent sequel, which I thought was not great. He's going to do the Tron movie next year, which I have higher hopes for now because this film, Young Woman in the Sea, is fantastic. One of the 5 best movies I've seen so far this year. Daisy Ridley, the best I've ever seen her. It is an emotional film. It's old-fashioned. It's got a great third act. It's got this power to it. And it's sincere, it's wholesome, but it's also raw at the same time. It is one of those movies that I think you need to experience on the big screen before it goes to Disney+. At least Disney gave it a theatrical release. I read the other day, apparently Jerry Bruckheimer was relentless in getting this into theaters. I wish Disney gave it a formal, official, put it in 2,000 theaters. Release, maybe they'll expand it. Maybe they'll pair it with Inside Out 2 at drive-ins in 2 weeks. That would be really smart. I think my initial thought was they put it out in just a couple hundred theaters to get the high per screen average, and then they expand. Hopefully they're willing to release those numbers officially and say, look at what this movie did. Look at the audience reaction to this movie, which is strong. Look at the critical reaction to this movie, which is really strong. Let's keep this movie in theaters before it goes to Disney Plus. I hope that's the case. I hope you go see it because it's a great movie. If you have children, you're going to Garfield, you're going to If. To me, this is even better than those two movies. I like Garfield, I like If. Young Woman in the Sea. If you have children who are, let's say, 8 to 9 and up, there's some serious themes in the movie, but this is a PG film, and it is absolutely worth their time. If they're into sports, if they're into athletics, what an inspiring story. What a good role model Trudy Everly was, and Daisy Ridley's performance, it comes through genuinely. It's a great movie. Young Woman in the Sea. Go see it. Go support it. Disney's got Inside Out 2 in 2 weeks. Their first true big movie of the year outside of Planet of the Apes in the 20th Century Division. But go support this Disney movie before it goes to Disney Plus. If it's playing at a theater near you, it's only at one theater near me, and it's like an hour away from most people in the upstate New York capital region area. If it's near you, go see Young Woman in the Sea. Speaking of a film you need to go see, Robot Dreams, which is one of the best animated movies of the last decade, opened in 2 theaters in New York City this weekend. $32,000. That's a $16,000 per screen average. Pablo Berger, the director, Oscar-nominated, Annie-winning for this movie, told me on Thursday when I talked to him, great conversation. He said, I want this movie to be an art house blockbuster this summer, and this is how you get it started. It's expanding throughout the month of June, throughout the summer. Go see Robot Dreams. It's an incredible film, incredible storytelling, memorable, heartwarming, deep, and I've got a new LCJ Q&A podcast episode, an Animation Scoop Q&A with Pablo that's available tomorrow. lcj.podbean.com and animationscoop.com. Tuesday, my conversation with Chris and Shane Houghton, the creators of Big City Greens, on their new Big City Greens, the movie Spacecation, which premieres Thursday on Disney Channel and Friday on Disney Plus. That conversation will be available on Tuesday. Also later this week, my conversation with the directors of Ultraman Rising, which I have seen, and that premieres June 14th on Netflix. That conversation coming later this week. We've got a new Inside Out 2 Q&A from Pixar coming to animationscoop.com later this week. And the Tribeca Film Festival kicks off, and I've seen all of the animated shorts curated by Whoopi Goldberg, which takes place every year at Tribeca. You'll get that piece with some exclusive statements from the directors available on Saturday at animationscoop.com. As I mentioned, Bad Boys is the big movie in theaters along with The Watchers. Bad Boys is a wild card because of Will Smith. I think it'll get to $40 million this weekend. The way the summer's been going, most of these movies have underperformed, but I think most people who know that Bad Boys is coming, I think are curious enough to want to go. I think it'll do $40 million. Maybe I'm shooting too high on this. Maybe I'm aiming too high with the estimate, and maybe it'll only do 25 or 30 or less. I don't think The Watchers is going to be number 1. I think Bad Boys is number 1. There's enough fans of the franchise that will go, but again, horror's been hot, so we will see what happens. On Netflix is Hitman, a film I do not care for, and as I mentioned, Big City Greens. The daytime Emmys is Friday. Also Friday night, the final Pat Sajak episode of Wheel of Fortune. And as Willie Geist said this morning on the Today Show, he feels like Pat's been kind of loose these last couple of weeks on Wheel for these final shows, and I completely agree with him. Pat Sajak has been loose. It's been wild the last few weeks on Wheel, not just the moments you see on social media, but other things that have been happening. If you watch Celebrity Wheel of Fortune, you know that show can go off the rails very quickly because a lot of these celebrities have these wild moments where you think they should solve the puzzle and they just don't know what the puzzle is, or they don't know the rules of Wheel of Fortune. And Pat is going crazy sometimes and overwhelmed and going, what is happening with these celebrities trying to play this game? And that's the vibe I've been getting while watching the last few weeks of these Wheel of Fortune episodes. So the final week is here. Pat's final episode Friday. What a career. What a run hosting Wheel of Fortune, and then Ryan Seacrest takes over in September. So there you go. Big week for television with Pat's final show, and then the Seacrest episodes should start sometime in September. So look for my thoughts later this week on Bad Boys. I believe I'll be seeing The Watchers as well. And those Animation Scoop Q&As and LCJ Q&A podcast episodes, and more coming soon. Some more exciting announcements. But yeah, the conversations I've had with these last couple days with these animation makers are fantastic. Oh, I got to tell you about Tuesday before we go. I saw Tuesday last night. This was at the Berkshire International Film Festival, which I go to at least one movie every year. Thank you to the folks at Berkshire International Film Festival for having me last night for Tuesday. This is a drama that A24 is putting out on June 14th in theaters nationwide. Right away, nationwide release. Stars Julia Louis-Dreyfus. This is a movie, I don't want to tell you everything about it, but it is a film about Julia Louis-Dreyfus plays a mother and her daughter is sick. And there's this parrot. And the parrot can talk. And the parrot shows up to speak with the girl and then eventually with Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character about something that's going to happen. And it is a drama. There's a little humor sprinkled in, but I didn't laugh. It's one of those movies where there's a little humor in there, but there's no need for you to laugh because you're trying to take it all in and you understand the drama behind it all. What's really interesting about the movie is the point of view that it has about life and death, the relationships we see with the characters, and the visuals. Because the parrot is animated, it's a CG character, and it changes sizes. And it looks real. I mean, it looks real in a lot of cases. Obviously, there's some fantastical moments, and you can understand, you see the CG, but it's a very interesting looking CG character. And kind of like 2 years ago, A24 had Marcel the Shell, which did some unique things with animation. This is a movie that also does unique things with visuals. It's a much more adult film. I think it's rated R. Marcel the Shell was appropriate for families. But it plays with shot composition. It plays with the sizes of characters. It plays with fantasy and reality. It's a very interesting film. Tuesday. It opens June 14th. I'll have more on it over the next couple weeks across my social media platforms. That's Twitter X at LCJ Reviews, Instagram at LightsCamJackson, lights-camera-jackson.com, lcj.podbean.com. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. youtube.com/lightscamerajackson. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video. And we're back here next Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern for LCJ Live. We'll see how Bad Boys and The Watchers do. We will also preview the box office for Inside Out 2. Pixar has to remember, with Elemental opening last year on the same weekend, not all kids are out of school yet for the summer. Is that going to be a factor into Inside Out 2's opening weekend, or is everybody going to go right away, and is this going to have an 80, 90, $100 million open? We will talk about that next Sunday on LCJ Live. Thank you for watching today's episode. Enjoy Pat Sajak's final week, his final show Friday night. I will see you next time for LCJ Live. I think that's all the topics. There were a lot of topics today, and I'll have more on Tribeca and more this week. Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.